Now that you've watched the videos in Connect over the male and female reproductive systems, you are ready to look at the cadaver. Don't forget, I'm going to expect you to learn the information in those videos in Connect. I might ask you some questions on the quiz and on the exam. So let's go to APR and look at the cadaver. This is an external view of the female breast. The breast consists of a body as well as an axillary process in the armpit. Internally, the breast is going to be supported by fibrous connective tissue septa called suspensory ligaments. These are attached to the dermis. The mammary glands produce milk. The milk goes into lactiferous ducts, which drain into lactiferous sinuses. The milk is stored in the lactiferous sinuses until the infant sucks. When the infant sucks, the sinuses empty the milk onto the nipple. Each sinus, thus each duct, will have its own opening. Surrounding the nipple is a pigmented area called the areola. Sebaceous glands are located in this area to keep the nipple moist. This is a sagittal view of the female reproductive system. Let's begin with some additional organs to get our orientation. For the reproductive quiz, these organs will not be on that quiz. The anal canal with the anus, remember the anus is the orifice, the rectum, the small intestine, anteriorly the urinary bladder with the urethra. Located between these structures, you will have the vagina leading into the uterus. The uterus will have three regions. The cervix is the inferior portion or region. The majority of the uterus will be the body, and that rounded superior portion of the uterus is called the fundus. The hollow portion or lumen of the uterus is going to be your uterine cavity. The uterine cavity will lead into the cervical canal. Remember, this is your cervix. With the cervical canal, you're going to have an opening leading to that canal from the uterine cavity, and that opening is going to be right there, and that will be an internal os. The opening at the other end, next to the vagina, will be the external os. If we go back to the vagina, you'll notice that the vagina has these little recesses here that go around the cervix. So right in here's your cervix. If you're looking at it, it looks like a donut with an opening. That would be your external os. And around the outer surface of that cervix, you're going to have these little recesses here of the vagina, and those are your fornix. So you're going to have a posterior vaginal fornix. Posterior, remember, here is your rectum, and an anterior vaginal fornix. This is your ovary with your uterine tube. That uterine tube can also be called the ovarian tube or the fallopian tube. Anterior to the pubic symphysis, you're going to have a pad of adipose tissue called the mons pubis. The erectile tissue for the female is the clitoris. And the external genitalia in this view will consist of your large lips called the labium or labia for plural, majus or majora. These are going to have hair on them after puberty. And then the smaller internal, or more medial, I should say, lips called the labium or labia for plural, minus or minora. This is an anterior or superior view. So we're going to start with the uterus. Associated with the uterus, you're going to have a broad ligament, and be sure that you go to the information icon here to learn more about the broad ligament. This is also covered in that video that I want you to watch on the female and male reproductive systems. You're also going to have a round ligament, and the round ligament is going to extend down to the labium majus or majora. The suspensory ligament is going to support the ovary, and going through that ligament, you'll have blood vessels, the ovarian blood vessels, as well as nerves. So if we go back, here are the ovaries, and here is your uterine tube. There will be different sections to the uterine tube. We're going to be looking at those, but this funnel-shaped area here is called the infundibulum. And coming off of that, you're going to have these finger-like projections called fimbriae. The uterine tube is not physically attached to the ovaries, but during ovulation, the fimbriae surround the ovaries and create a current to help pull the ovulated oocyte into the uterine tube. So this is the infundibulum here. Let's go back to the uterine tube. This little funnel-shaped plate section with the fimbriae coming off of it. The majority of the uterine tube is going to be the ampulla, and this is where fertilization normally occurs. And then this narrow area here that empties into, this is going to be your uterus. This is going to be the isthmus. There is another ligament called the mesosalpinx. So again, be sure that you go to the icon here to learn more about it. This is looking at the externa genitalia. Again, this is the mons pubis, that adipose tissue that is anterior to your pubic symphysis. The vestibule is going to be the area that is surrounded by the labium minus. And in the labium minus, you're going to have two orifices. You'll have a vaginal orifice, which is posterior to the external urethral orifice. So again, vaginal and the orifice for the urethra. This is the anus. The labium majus or majora. And you will also have a greater vestibular gland, which releases mucus for lubrication. And you will have the clitoris here, which is the erectile tissue. Moving on to the male reproductive system, this is a sagittal look. Let's get our orientation here. There is the anal canal, the rectum, urinary bladder, and this is going to be the opening to the urethra, the external urethral orifice here. If we go back and we look at the scrotum, housed within the scrotum, you have the testis. Testes for plural. These are the male gonads. This is where sperm production occurs within tiny tubules called seminiferous tubules. Again, be sure to watch the videos because the videos go over the seminiferous tubules. Once the sperm are produced in the seminiferous tubules, they will be stored in the epididymis. The epididymis is a comma-shaped structure that is on the external surface of the testis. During ejaculation, the sperm then will move into the ductus deferens or vas deferens. You can't see that in this view, but we will see that, the ductus deferens in another view. The penis itself consists of 3 erectile tissue columns, a single corpus spongiosum that surrounds the urethra. So here's the urethra. It is going to, here in the root of the penis, you're going to have the bulb of the corpus spongiosum. And then at the tip, the distalmost portion of the corpus spongiosum, you will have the glans penis covered by a prepuce, which is your foreskin, unless circumcision has been performed. The glans penis is going to have a rich supply of sensory nerves. The paired corpora cavernosa are located here, and they are going to be primarily responsible for erection. These erectile tissues, we're going to talk about them in lecture, but they're going to fill with blood, and that is going to lead to an erection. So you will have 2 corpus cavernosum, and corpora is plural for corpus, cavernosa is plural for cavernosum. This is going to be the remnant of the prepuce, which is the foreskin. Now on the exam, you do need to call it the prepuce. So let's look at the prostate here. The prostate produces some of the seminal fluid. So be sure again that you watch that video. The urethra is going to have several different sections. If we go back to the urinary bladder here, the first section of the urethra is going to be the prostatic urethra, and it's going to go through the middle of the prostate. And from there, you are going to go into the membranous urethra, which is going through the urogenital diaphragm. And then you will move into the spongy urethra or penile urethra, which is going to go through the penis. So remember, the corpus spongiosum is going to then surround the spongy urethra. This is an inferior view, external view. Again, this is your scrotum. That's your glans penis. That's the body of the penis. And we're going to be looking at the bulb here. So here is going to be the bulb of the corpus spongiosum. And notice that the corpus spongiosum is going to end in the glans penis here. This is the crude of the corpora cavernosa. So this is going to be the root of the penis here. And the crude is going to then go into the corpus cavernosa or corpora cavernosa within the penis. This is an anterior view of the male reproductive system. The penis has been cut here, so we can see the 2 corpora cavernosa here. And then the corpus spongiosum. And remember that the corpus spongiosum is going to surround the spongy urethra. This is going to be the testis right here. This is the epididymis sitting on the surface of the testis. So this is where the sperm are going to be stored until ejaculation. And then during ejaculation, the sperm then move into the ductus deferens or vas deferens. The ductus deferens, as well as blood vessels and nerves, are going to go through the spermatic cord or be housed within the spermatic cord. And again, I want you to go and look at the information here. It's going to tell you that the spermatic cord goes through the inguinal canal. This is just looking at a testis here with the epididymis. The epididymis will have 3 sections: a head, a body, and a tail. So the sperm will undergo maturation and gain the ability to swim as they go through the epididymis. So they're produced in the testis, and then go to the epididymis, continue their maturation, and are stored in the tail until ejaculation, at which point they will go into the ductus deferens. For the histology, we're going to start with the ovary. The ovary is going to have a germinal epithelium surrounding it. In addition, you're going to have an outer cortex, and this is really where the interesting stuff is located. The outer cortex is going to have follicles in different stages. So these are all follicles here. And again, go here to the information. It's going to tell you what is going to be located here, ovarian follicles. And then the medulla is the central part. We're going to have blood vessels and nerves there. So that's my ovary. Within the ovary, in the cortex, we're going to have follicles in different stages of development. The primordial follicles are going to be the stage where all of your follicles are. They are arrested in this stage when the female is born. Within each primordial follicle, you're going to have an oocyte, and this is the oocyte, this whole thing here with the nucleus. Notice that the walls of the follicle are simple squamous epithelium. So you can see right in here, and that's what you're going to look for. So this is my primordial follicle. And then I'm going to go into, I don't have, here is a secondary follicle. Notice that the secondary follicle is going to, I don't have a primary follicle. Whoops. Let me get rid of the highlights. So the secondary follicle is going to be a stratified layer. So you're going to see you have two layers here. A primary follicle, which is not, I don't have an image of it, would just consist of a single layer of simple cuboidal cells. And when you start seeing stratified, that's going to be a secondary follicle. This here is your primary oocyte. So this will develop into a secondary oocyte, and a secondary oocyte is what you ovulate. And only if it is fertilized does it become an ovum or egg. So this would be the primary oocyte with its nucleus. You're going to have a small cohort of follicles that are selected every month after puberty. And as they go through going from primordial to primary to secondary follicles, there will be one dominant follicle that will survive and will go to this tertiary stage. And the tertiary stage is going to consist of a fluid-filled area called an antrum. So this would be the antrum. This is going to push the oocyte, which is this right in here, over to the side. The oocyte will be surrounded with some cells called the corona radiata. And again, inside that, you will have a primary oocyte. So for a tertiary follicle, again, look for this antrum, this fluid-filled area. This is a uterus. The uterus is going to have 3 layers in the wall, a perimetrium, which is the outermost layer, a myometrium, which is going to be smooth muscle, and that's going to be this area here. We can't see the perimetrium. And then the endometrium. The endometrium is going to consist of 2 layers, a functional layer, and you'll have some uterine glands in here, and a basal layer. The functional layer is what is shed every month during menstruation. This is all lamina propria here. And once if pregnancy does not occur and the functional layer is shed during menstruation, the basal layer produces a new functional layer. Moving on to the male, this is a seminiferous tubule. Remember that the seminiferous tubules are located in the testes. So this right in here would be one tubule. This is just a little small section of another one, but here's a seminiferous tubule, this whole thing. And the wall of seminiferous tubule are going to consist of germ cells. And these are cells that are undergoing spermatogenesis and are in different stages of spermatogenesis. As they move toward the lumen, here's the lumen, they will finally become sperm. So you're going to see sperm here, spermatozoan. Again, be sure that you watch the video for additional information. That concludes this video.